Prashant, if such a gap exists, right? So if we see such gaps coming up as we discussed, whose job is it to pin it to the wall? Is it senior management? Is it HR? Or is it something that has to come from HQ? I don't know. Yeah.
I think, I mean, in my opinion, it's of course, fixing the gap is always a leadership problem. It's never a problem at sort of like, of course you can kind of delegate ownership on how you kind of fix the gap, but it's always a leadership problem. Recognizing that there is a gap is a leadership thing. Defining the roadmap to to make sure that it actually gets accomplished is also a leadership thing. The execution around it, of course, delegation, etc., idea generation, how you actually get it done, implementing, executing it, all that kind of moves down to that layer. But I think it is definitely a leadership issue. So depending on where the leadership is, like she said, for instance, in many instances now the leadership sits here, so which is at par with the leadership which is from where the work is kind of insourced. So I think it's basically a leadership.
I have one question for you. So, like we said, there are we have a 1993 Japan is not the 2026 Japan, but at the same time, at this moment, there are different Indias as well, right? So there is somebody whose first exposure to work to college was a cooperative college in Jamshedpur, and then from there somebody came in to somebody else who's had a different pathway, right? And so in the GCC world, or in a world where there is a lot of engagement with different cultures, so are you seeing that having an impact, the access or the pathways that people have taken, and where they are right now? Is that, so some of us probably have had a different access privilege, some of us don't have. So is that had an impact, and if that is the case, then how do we really address that issue?
So absolutely, I think the way you're groomed makes a difference in the later part of your life, right? So there have been multiple interns that we keep getting, right? There's a marked difference between having interns fresh out of college who have studied in international schools, for example, versus the traditional schools, right? Because the experiential way of learning in an international school is very different, right? So the same task, if you go give it to two different set of interns, the output is different, right? Now that eventually some people cope up with that difference.
So that is a competency or an application thing. I'm talking about, say, somebody from Salem or Madurai, or somebody who's just come into city and started working, and somebody who's been in Hyderabad all through, and then their engagement, their outlook, etc., can be different, right? And that can possibly be a big, because from a talent perspective, competency perspective, they're probably there and good, but from an engagement perspective, they would still be
absolutely. So which is where the tone has to be set from the top. You just asked a question a while back on whose responsibility is it to bridge that gap, right? It has to be the leaders' responsibility at their respective levels. Especially now that work is more global in nature. Like Swati mentioned, cost arbitrage is no more a benefit that India carries. It's more to do with what productivity benefit you're bringing to the table, how collaborative work can be done much faster if it is driven from India, for example, right? More global leaders coming, you also get more local mentors, for example. If the same people who are doing a lot of global work also are spending time to groom the local leadership to take more new roles, all of that eventually counts, right? So it is, the difference is certainly there, but I think there's a lot more that's happening in terms of internal grooming of a lot of people from the next level perspective as well now. So we are seeing a lot of that also changing. So while competence of an individual naturally comes to play, a lot also goes on how has he been mentored in due course of time, how's the leadership taking to grooming people. It's very easy to just pick up the best of the lot and say these guys are going to be my flag bearers. What is important for a leader is also to groom people to get into that role also in due course of time. So I think that is also changing big time now. Absolutely.
Nidhi and Shanta, I have a question, which is what I call as the leadership tax, which is like, what is one assumption about communication, right? About how conversations work, how feedback lands, etc. That you carried into leadership and had to unlearn. Something that you thought works, what got you here did not get you at the time.
The biases that we have, right? I think there was in conversation we were talking about that things are changing, but are we changing? We still kind of own those biases. We still think that, okay, these are Japanese, they will work 18 hours and, you know, we have to kind of cope up with that speed and all. So some of these biases which are there in our mind need to be changed, and we also need to evolve, right, as leaders, as you know, especially around the delivery of delivery from here. We have to evolve. We have to evolve with the changing dynamics and this change outside, inside, everywhere, right? Everything is changing, everything is evolving. So how quickly we can adapt and pivot, and I think that helps.
So I'll build on what Nidhi said. I think what the one unlearning that happens is if you're confident, spoken, right? A lot of times you want to be heard, and you feel that okay, I've got my messaging out clearly. I think what one has learned over time is, to your earlier point, what at the end of it, if things are not moving, then I think the first question to ask is there comprehension and clarity? There's a group of individuals who've come together to solve a problem, right? And they're not working in, they're hopefully not working in the conflicting this thing. So one is, I think, why is it understood? Is there a comprehension issue? Second, is there a conflict for a reason? Is there a conflict in their mind if they're not able to agree to you? I think so that one piece about understanding, you know, if you've been through the non-verbal cues and all of that, and you know that you sense in the room that something's not completely agreed to, unless everybody's violently agreeing, that's another concern to solve for. But to try and understand, so the first principle I try and apply is, which I've unlearned in this, is to listen, get a sense of saying that is there some disagreement and what is that disagreement? Maybe just be open to it. And I think the second piece is you don't have to solve everything now. At some point in time, you know, you may have, I think the most important list where things don't move is to say what is not getting resolved, because those are the escalations that typically come to you. In that, you may have answers to some, you may not have answers to some. I think that's the second approach that I have. And the third thing is a lot of my time is now spent in finding people who may have answers to. So the third thing is you don't have to find answers to everything. Your job is to be the sutradhar of finding people. So I think those are a few things that keep working, because in our jobs, mostly if things are working fine, then people want compliments. It's only escalations that mostly come to you. So.
Thank you very much for the honest answers to these questions. So I think what we all, I'm sure right from the beginning, we're all on the same page on what works and what does not work and what needs to be taken care of. I think the way I would say is you don't know you have a rule book until you break someone else's, right? So I think that's where we have to see and be cognizant of, and probably be able to sense that and be able to, first of all, um, open to learn, unlearn, and all of those things, and that's what I think will help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.